r/AskReddit by Reddition. Like and subscribe. Serious. People who've had sex with their friend's parent. How the hell did you get to that point? What happened after? I slept with my friend's mother at a music festival, was very high on acid. We were all hanging out, me, my two friends who were dating, we'll call them David and Claire's mother. Claire doesn't feel too hot, so David takes her back to the campsite and me and her mother are just left to the festival. We get some drinks in, do some dancing, one thing leads to another, and yeah. Afterwards we just sort of chilled in my tent for a few hours, before hitting the party tent, having a wee cuddle. Claire actually walked in on us after we had finished and I was so high I didn't even really know what was happening, I just knew that I had done something very wrong. So the festival ends and we all go home, and of course the sensible thing to do would have been to try patch things up with Claire and never talk to her mother again. You will find however that I'm not a sensible man and proceeded to not only see her again but date her on and off for 4 years. I have so many stories about those 4 years. I slept with a childhood friend's dad while visiting my hometown. Long story short, he's bi and divorced and I was browsing on a gay hookup app. It's a small countryside town, so the only things to do are ketamine, sex or leave. He messages me and he clearly doesn't recognize me because I don't look the same as I did a decade ago. I recognize him and the entire time I'm thinking this is really weird, but I'm bored and he's relatively handsome and charming, as far as charming goes on Grindr lol, so I figure hey why not? And hindsight is 20/20 because the sex was fun, but the entire time I'm thinking this is my friend's dad. He has literally driven me to school before. Just left an overall odd feeling. My friend doesn't know, and it's going to stay that way because we don't really talk whatsoever now, and it'd be weird to just pop up like your dad jackhammered my prostate, and it was kinda weird. My brother's best friend from high school dated my mom in his 30s. She had my brother really young when she was barely 15, so when his friend was in his 30s, she wasn't yet 50. I will always remember the night he found out. They fought, and my brother's friend left the house and got into his car. My brother followed him out and punched him in the head through the driver's side window. He managed to go through the window and still connect with enough force to knock him out cold. I had sex with one of my best friend's mom. It was Thanksgiving, and I was driving her back home, and she confessed that she didn't have sex in years, since she was a widow. I told her that I didn't have sex in months, since I was moving. We talked a bit more, and we sorta flirted, and once we got to her house, she asked me to come inside, and we did the deed. A friend of mine's mom basically hit on a number of us in the group, and sadly it just became kind of a matter of time before one of us caved, and it eventually happened. He saw it coming. I feel bad for him. Recently divorced mid-30s hot mom and a group of 18-year-olds. It wasn't me who did it. I went to high school with a kid whose mom was like this. She'd let him throw big parties and she would get topless in the hot tub with teenagers. It was extremely awkward because most of us didn't want to go in the backyard when she was out there because we didn't feel comfortable. Several of his friends had sex with her, and one of them ended up dating her for like 5 years and moving with her to LA. It was very bizarre. I'm on mobile, so apologies for the formatting. I was at a friend's birthday party. My friend was in her mid-20s, I was 30, her mom was in her early 50s. She and her mom took really good care of me after my father passed. They made sure I was eating, and that I actually left the apartment every day, as I was prone to just sit around being a depressed sad sack. Friend's mom and I used to get stoned together. So when we were at her daughter's birthday party at her mom's house, she called me to her room so we could smoke a joint. She didn't want to do it in front of everyone, and it definitely wasn't the first time we'd gotten a little high together. So it was somewhat familiar territory. Maybe it was the weed, or the wine, or both, but as we're smoking and chatting, I just leaned in and kissed her. To my surprise, she kissed me back, and we proceeded to make out like a couple of horny teenagers on the love seat in her bedroom. She stopped for a moment, looked at me and said, well, had I known you were interested we could have done this a long time ago. We made out a little more, and I told her that we should stop, because we're going to get caught. So we kissed and groped one another a little more, and returned to the party. The next day she stopped by my apartment, to see how I was doing, which wasn't uncommon. That day was slightly different. She was always a very good looking woman, but that day she had more carefully applied makeup, some nice looking earrings and a blouse that showed off more cleavage than usual. I invited her in, and we were off to the races. We both had a great time, but I thought of my friend, and said that we probably shouldn't do this again. She didn't really respond to it, and we continued to cuddle for a while. The next day she called me, and said that she thought she may have lost her earring on my bed or my couch, which I thought was BS, but it turns out that the earring was indeed in between the cushions of my couch. She came over to retrieve it, and we went at it again, and again, and again. This went on for months, until I finally was moving out of state. It never happened again, we never spoke of it, and my friend never found out. Sadly, my friend's mom passed 5 years ago. I'd thought about telling her but it just seemed like a bad idea. R.I.P. Julie. You were smoking hot and just an all-around great woman. When I was 20, I got accepted to university in Canada. I'm a French guy, and my mum put together a BBQ to celebrate it with my best friends, among which was my actual best friend, girl my age, who lived far, so she would stay the night. My mum and dad were already getting divorced and sleeping in separate rooms back then, so there was no doubt they will ever get back to normalcy in terms of their relationship. After most people left, and I was drunking my way around talking about Canada with another friend, my now former best friend, and my dad made sure my mum went to bed and carried on drinking together. All I remember after is me trying to figure out where the hell my friend was in the morning as the guest room was empty. It took so much fighting denial to realize she had been sleeping with my dad all night. Mum was destroyed, so was I. They both denied it and said they just talked. I still cannot believe this happened, but with retrospective my dad has been such a crap dad to his kids and wife, and that friend has not been nice to me either. Edit. Wow, I did not expect this story to go that far. Thank you for the awards and the heartwarming comments. First time sharing something that personal so publicly, but I'm glad I did. I hooked up with my student's mom. I was teaching an after-school program, so I saw her almost every week at pickup. Sometimes her husband would pick up. Yes, she was married, and we would talk a lot to the point that we became friendly. Well, I was going through a divorce and happened to bring that up one time, and she very quickly gave me her phone number, put her hands on me. She was not being shy about it. Something like out of a movie. Next time I saw her she asked me out to lunch, and I said sure. We met up, had lunch, she paid, and she went on to tell me about how her and her husband were not sexually involved with each other, and they were free to see other people. We went back to my place and the sex was wild. That was the only time we hooked up though, as I started dating someone shortly thereafter. Her kid was one of those "I'll flip your mom Xbox Live kids," so I would just chuckle to myself when I saw him. I had sex with a good friend's mom. Looking back, it's really messed up. She had been working on me for months. I was only 18. I'm ashamed of it. Fortunately the friend never found out. But as an adult, I now look back at it and realize that I was in over my head and she should have known better. Edit. Wow everyone, I appreciate the sympathy. Let me just tell you a little more, so you don't worry about me. Was I groomed? Maybe looking back, I was. But I was certainly no virgin. The reason I feel ashamed of it is because it was my friend's mom. I could have had her anytime, and she offered pretty often. So one night, I decided to take her up on it. This doesn't affect me today, probably never did in any deep way, except feeling like crap, because it was a betrayal of my friend. But as an adult, I find her decisions disgusting. And as an adult, I realize that my 18-year-old self didn't know anything about life and rarely thought of anything beyond getting laid. I'm not hard on myself about it these days, but I was for several years. Well, I was a horny guy, and my friend's mom was, well, available. Really? I'm not proud of it, it just kind of happens sometimes, and every time I felt shame. I don't know, like I was betraying my friend's trust. Worst thing was, she was actually a friend of my mom too, so I kinda saw her on a regular basis. A good friend of mine had this happen to her back in high school. She caught her, also high school aged, boyfriend sexting her 40-something-year-old mother, and it led to her mom and her stepdad's divorce. All while she was 17 years old. She still has a strained relationship with her mom to this day. We are 25 now, so this happened almost 10 years ago. I don't think you can ever get over that kind of betrayal by your own mother. I believe she still has a good relationship with her now ex-stepdad though. Her mom is now dating a man her age, but she will always be a predator in my eyes that seduces her daughter's boyfriend. So gross. Friend's mom going through some tough times with her husband, accidentally added one of our friends on Facebook. She started flirting with him, and eventually they flipped. After this kept going on for a couple of months, dude decided to tell his friend, son, about it, at his house. The son cried, they threw hands at each other and everything was alright moments later. Don't really know what happened after that, lost contact with both of them. In my late 20s, I had a friend in a small mountain town in the western US. His mom gets separated, moves in with him. She's mildly flirtatious with me, no big deal. Not enough to raise any red flags. Job changes and I move to the city, 90 miles south. He comes on weekends to party a few times, normal stuff. Then he comes to party and brings her. At her request we have a late night flip fest while he's passed out in the next room. Major violation of bro code by me, but she asked nicely. No surprise we weren't friends after that. My best friend was dating this chick and having sex with her, and when she fell asleep he would sex her mom up, until one day his GF found out, and the mom and daughter fought. It was almost like Jerry Springer. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for daily Reddit videos.